So welcome everybody. Welcome to the July edition of the Scrum Professionals Thursday evening meetup. Glad you're here. And tonight I am absolutely thrilled to get to introduce our speaker, Season. Season is an absolutely amazing Agile coach that I've known for about 5 years. And I heard about her before I had the chance to meet her. So I was working with some teams at Dolby, and they were raving about their Scrum Master. Several people were like, oh my goodness, we've got this amazing Scrum Master named Season. And several people, had told me that the teams that she supported were the highest performing teams they had ever been a part of. And so you can imagine I was very curious and interested to meet Season. And fast forward to today, and at Agile Learning Labs, we have the joy and privilege of getting to work with Season. She's done a bunch of writing for us and helped improve our workshops and teaching some parts of our workshops these days. It's kind of exciting. Season's coaching focuses on team health first, which really builds a great foundation for teams becoming high performing. She holds a whole bunch of certifications, including Certified Scrum Professional Scrum Master. That's the top of the Scrum Master certification ladder from the Scrum Alliance. Also the International Coaching Federation Associate Certified Coach. And she's currently pursuing Certified Scrum Trainer. Ooh, very cool. She's worked at Amazon, Atlassian, Dolby, TripAdvisor, even a little stint at Disney. And did I mention Agile Learning Labs? So without any further ado, I am absolutely thrilled to turn this over to Season. Season, the show is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. We here as Agile practitioners, we are so good at taking care of other people, but we forget sometimes to take care of ourselves. I want you to think about the last time that you were on a plane. And yes, this is me at my flight attendant graduation. That was my first job out of college. And what do flight attendants say when you're on a flight? They say, please put on your own oxygen masks before assisting others, right? Well, how many of us here, show of hands, type it in chat, how many of us feel like we have done a good job lately at putting on our own oxygen masks first? Yeah, maybe not so much.
No, not so much.
Yeah, not so much. And you know what?
Selfless.
Yeah, it's hard.
We keep on prizing others.
Yeah.
To take care of ourselves.
And we're not alone in that. 1 in 5 Americans actually has a mental illness, and all that is defined as is significant changes in thinking, emotion, and behavior. It's also defined as having problems, any kind of distress functioning in your social life and work and your family activities. I read that and I was thinking, who has not felt that way lately? The way that our world is right now, we've been in a global pandemic for years. And I don't know how many of us here either have been laid off recently, know someone who's been laid off recently, you've gotten on LinkedIn, you're seeing all these notifications, people looking for work. The world is hard right now. And what else is hard? Those of us who do have jobs as Agile practitioners, our jobs are hard. We are dealing with people. Our roles are to guide people into better ways of working. People don't always want to be guided. People don't always want to change. I say that changing people is so much harder than changing code. For example, this time here tonight, with all of the time that we spend in our jobs, in our roles, helping other people, I want this time tonight to just be for ourselves. What we just talked about, how hard it is to help ourselves. when we're busy helping other people. So I'll be your flight attendant for tonight, guiding you on this journey of focusing on yourself and your mental health. As Chris mentioned, I'm seasoned. I've been working in tech for 11 and a half years, which is crazy to me. I started my Agile journey as a Scrum Master, and now I work as an Agile coach with Agile Learning Labs. And we are talking about mental health tonight. So I want to share with you that I've also been diagnosed with social anxiety, general anxiety, panic disorder, and depression. And I got asked by someone in another talk, how can you share this information? And to me, it was like, well, it's just a part of who I am. It's not anything that I would ever hide or be ashamed of. It does present challenges to me every single day of my life. But just as I wouldn't ask to, break my leg, I never signed up for any of this mental health challenge. It's just who I am. And it's a part of me. And it's something that I feel like we should talk about more and share more. And I'm not ashamed. Just as I am not ashamed to be an introvert as well, a 100% introvert. In fact, you cannot get any more introverted on the scale than me. And so it's kind of funny that I ended up with this role that deals all day with people and the challenges that coming from changing people. So what we are talking about today, what I'm showing you, sharing with you, it's pretty personal. It has to do with my own mental health challenges. It has to do with what I've learned and tried along the way. It has to do with a lot of research that I've done. And what I really want from you is to be able to just walk away from this session with a better understanding of your own mental health and just some ways that you can help yourself put on your own oxygen mask, if you will. Where we're going to go tonight, we are first going to talk a little bit more about mental health and what it is, just to establish that shared understanding. We are going to talk a little bit about stress and the stresses that we face in our particular roles as Agile practitioners. We are going to take a little tiny break. This is a longer session. I don't want to just talk at you for an hour. I am a big fan of breaks, and we're going to take one about halfway through. And then we're going to learn a little bit more about self-care. That's stopping to take care of ourselves. That way we can better take care of other people. So mental health, we had breakout rooms right before this. And in those breakout rooms, we talked a little bit about what mental health means to us. What I would love for you to do, you can type it into chat. You can unmute and share. You can do a mental health interpretive dance in your window. My question to you is, what does mental health mean to you? When you hear mental health, again, type in chat. Feel free to unmute. You talked in your breakout rooms. What does mental health mean to you? Estrella, a safe environment where you can have relationships and talk. Perfect. What else? Mental health. Setting boundaries and not feeling bad about it. Oh, Olaf, that is a good one. And that is hard to do. Psychological well-being. Yes, mental health. Your own psychology and taking care of that and being well. Well said, Rob. And being who you are and not worrying about what others think you should be. Yes, should is a big word that comes up in mental health. I've heard the saying, don't should yourself. Like, oh, I should be a better Scrum Master. I should go give speeches at meetups. Like, no, just be in tune with who you are, not who you should be. Awesome. Feel free to keep those going. I'll give you the official definition of mental health. This comes from the World Health Organization. Mental health is just being able to cope with life and being able to contribute to your community. The state of mental health affects our decision making. It affects the ability to build relationships. Some organizations even advocate for mental health as a basic human right. And what happens when we don't care for our mental health? It comes at a cost. An estimated 12 billion working days each year are lost to depression and anxiety. And that cost, that actual cost in dollars, is $1 trillion in lost productivity. Mental health affects your behavior, your emotions, your physical well-being. It affects your performance at work. And what is a leading detriment to our mental health? The S word, stress. I love this definition of stress. It actually comes from a Buddhist monk, that stress is the gap between our expectations and our reality. Think of it as the turbulence or the bumpy air along our journey. Speaking of stress, 58% of Americans say that stress comes from work as a significant source. How many of you would agree? Show of hands typing in chat. Work is a significant source of stress. I see Chris nodding, Andy, hand up. Yeah. The title for this talk officially is Mental Health for Scrum Masters. Really, this talk is for anyone who deals with people, who deals with change, anyone who is expected to, stop me if this sounds familiar, come into a company and transform the entire company and solve all of their problems, because that's what you do, right? When we're talking about stress, there's an important difference between stress and stressors. And there's a great book called Burnout by Dr. Emily and Amelia Nagoski, where they go into the difference between stress and a stressor. So think about being chased by a lion, a big, scary, fearsome lion, just like this one. So the lion is the stressor. Lion's chasing you. Lion could change its mind and decide, you know, I'm done here. I'm gonna go take a nap somewhere else. They stop chasing you. That doesn't mean that the stress is gone. Maybe the stressor is gone, but your stress response, oh, sorry, I got chased by a lion and I got scared and had to go to the next slide. See, my stress response is still there from that lion. I can feel my heart beating, my digestive system is activated, my musculoskeletal system gets activated. All of your stress response remains even when your stressors are gone. And hopefully, stressors in your jobs are not lions, but they could be leaders. They could be conflicts between team members. It could be the pressure to perform. All of that chronic stress that's building up from the stressors, that can lead to high blood pressure. High blood pressure leads to heart disease, and heart disease is one of, if not the biggest contributors to death. Stress can be fatal. And that's why, and we're going to talk about this, it is so important to control how you respond to stress, because you cannot always control those stressors, especially at work. They will always be there. our flavors of stress as agile practitioners. We will get to have a choice on our flight, on our journey of which ones we dive into. I'm going to give you a little overview before we pick which one, so you'll know which one you want to vote for. We can talk about how we really want agile to work, how we want to be able to control our environment and get rid of all of those threats to our perfect Scrum. We can talk about our pressure to define success in our roles and how that pressure and that definition of success often can dangerously become our identities. And we can talk about feeling like a fraud, also known as imposter syndrome. A lot of us are coaches or teachers or Scrum masters. We are looked to the ones to have all of the answers, and sometimes we just don't, and that can be really scary. So Chris, if you would be so kind as to put up a poll, you will get to choose what we are going to talk about first. And it's going to be kind of a lean coffee, as in we will likely have time to talk about 2 out of these 3 topics. So whichever 2 get the most votes, that is what we will be talking about tonight. So go ahead in the poll, vote for one topic that you most want to talk about first. And I'm keeping an eye on the poll. I'm seeing that imposter syndrome is in the lead right now, followed by defining success is really close behind. So I'll give you another, let's say 20 seconds or so. What do we want to talk about first? Again, we will have time for about 2 of these topics. So go ahead and get your votes in. I'm gonna end the poll in about 5. Oh, this is a Chris thing. 5, 4, 3, 2. Perfect. Okay. First up, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud. And then we will move on to that pressure to define success. So I shouldn't say this, I shouldn't pick favorites, but this is my favorite topic. So I'm so glad that we get to talk about this one. First, I have a question for you. If you're on camera, you can raise your hand. If you're in chat, you can type yes. So either raise your hand or type in chat yes if you know what JIRA is. Who knows what JIRA? Yeah, okay. Okay, keep your hand up or type yes in chat if you love JIRA. If it's your favorite thing. Okay, Andy, I see. No shame in loving JIRA. I'm totally kidding about that. You can put your hand down. This is Mike Cannon Brooks. Mike is one of the founders of Atlassian, who is probably most famous for making JIRA everybody's favorite work tracking tool for software development. Mike is a professor in the New South Wales Computer Science Department. He is a vocal environmental advocate. You may have heard his name because he likes to go toe-to-toe with Elon Musk on environmental issues sometimes. He is a billionaire and he has imposter syndrome. He talks about it publicly. In fact, he did a TED Talk, which you can find on YouTube, all about his imposter syndrome. He talked about the early days of Atlassian where he would sit in board meetings and he'd be nodding his head and pretending he knew what was going on, but he'd secretly be writing out all of the words and acronyms that were flying around so he could Google them later. He feels imposter syndrome when he is winning international awards. He feels imposter syndrome, he said, when he looks to his wife and family and feels like he doesn't deserve them. And this is coming from a successful billionaire. And I want to make a note about Atlassian and their onboarding process. They do a really cool thing where they dedicate an entire section of their onboarding just to imposter syndrome and to say, hey, we know you may feel like you don't deserve to be here, but we do, and you do deserve to be here. We're glad that you're here. What imposter syndrome is, where it came from. It was actually originally known as imposter phenomenon. It was discovered by Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Imes in the 1978. It originally came from a study on women, successful women who had this nagging feeling that someone was going to come along and just declare them to be a phony, a fraud. These women, when they talked about their success, they would say, oh, I just got lucky, not, oh yeah, I'm able, I can do this. We know this doesn't just affect women, this phenomenon, this imposter syndrome. There's a website called Blind, which is built for the tech community. And when they did a poll of their users, 58% of blind users admitted to suffering from imposter syndrome, people in the tech community. That fear that someone is going to come and rip it all away and tell you that you are unqualified. I want you to imagine this happening on the internet for everyone to see. Yeah. Awkward agile, that's me. And I am an agile coach, and I have never been a developer. I have no formal coding experience, although I am in a coding boot camp right now to get that experience, to learn, to better serve my teams and be a better coach. And I've been documenting my journey on YouTube. And this is where this comment came from. And it really just sent me down a spiral reading that. The official term is a catastrophic thinking caused by a cognitive distortion. And Dr. David Burns, who's a professor at Stanford University, defines cognitive distortions as the ability to believe things which have no basis in reality. And these are some examples. The ones that I was dealing with mostly was all or nothing thinking. I was thinking all coaches, they've got to have experience in what they're coaching. I am the only coach in the entire world who does not. And I want to talk a little bit about shame. This comes from a study on social behavior and personality, and they found that shame is one of the biggest predictors of imposter syndrome. It's measured by a test called the test of self-conscious affect, and you can see a couple of questions here. Notice that shame, the highlighted answers, tends to come from turning inwards and blaming yourself and feeling like you are not good enough. And it's a very common feeling, especially in those with imposter syndrome. It's so common that Brene Brown, who we've probably all heard from, has said, the only people who do not experience shame have no capacity for human empathy or connection. Yikes. So I'm sitting here feeling shame, feeling imposter syndrome. What is any good person to do? Turn to Google. Has anyone here been watching Netflix Formula One racing documentary Drive to Survive? You can feel free to raise your hand. You can put it in chat. It was one of those shows where I was watching it over my boyfriend's shoulder and I thought like, oh, car is boring. And then I really got into it. I got curious about this show. I was watching it around the time that YouTube comment came up, and I started looking up the principles of each team. And a principle, for those of you who have not accidentally gotten obsessed with a Formula One Netflix show, a principal is really the boss of the team. They make all of the decisions before the race, during the race, after the race. They are in charge of the pit crew, the driver, marketing, everything goes through the principal. And as I was looking up at the team's principals, I saw that 4 of the team principals have no previous formal experience as drivers. They've been in the F1 world for a long time. They have deep experience. A lot of them came from engineering, but none of them have actually been the ones driving the cars. I also thought about Ted Lasso, probably one of the more famous examples, a fictional one, but a good one. And if you haven't watched it, actually, if you have, I have not caught up on the new season, so please no spoilers. But if you haven't, it's the story of a college football coach who gets hired to train a soccer or football team in England. And the intent of hiring him was to actually get him to fail. But spoiler alert, his inexperience actually works spectacularly in his favor. Here's the thing with stress. It feeds on thinking that you are all alone. And the best way to challenge imposter syndrome and stress is to be open about how you're feeling. So we're going to do an exercise. This exercise is going to look a little bit different than any Never Have I Ever game you may have played in college. We will not be drinking for this. What I want you to do, if you are on camera, is to hold up both of your fists. If you are not in camera, what you can do to answer each question is to type a yes in chat. So hold up both of your fists, and anytime I mention something that you have done or felt, you're gonna pop up one of your fingers. Okay, so here's what it'll look like. Never have I ever felt like I don't know what I'm doing. So if you've ever felt that way, one of your fingers will go up or you will type it in chat. Perfect, Australia, you've got it. Never have I ever felt like I'm just making it up as I go along. Like it's another finger, if you're feeling that. Never have I ever felt like everyone else has it together except for me. Another finger or yes in chat. I'm gonna put my hands down, but keep going. Never have I ever compared myself to others and felt like they were better than me. Never have I ever felt like I just happen to get lucky sometimes. Never have I ever downplayed my achievements. Never have I ever felt like someone is going to come along and expose me as a fraud. And never have I ever felt like I am the only person who feels this way. I want you to look around. Yeah, look at all these fingers. Hold them up. The fingers, the yeses in chat. And I want you to clap. And even if you're not on camera, clap too. I want you to clap for being brave and for sharing your vulnerabilities. These are, this meetup is called Scrum Professionals. This is a meetup of people that I look up to, my peers that I feel intimidated by sometimes. And I saw people with their fingers in the air, their yeses in chat. This happens to everyone. Anytime you are feeling like you are alone, like you are not enough, and you are downplaying your achievements in Agile, I want you to stop. And I want you to think about those fingers in the air, those yeses in chat from professionals in our field. Know that we all feel this way, and you are not alone. We are going to talk about success next. This one, speaking of professionals, our jobs, Agile practitioners, being here in this meetup, I'm curious to know, and you can type this in chat or again, feel free to unmute. What does success mean to you? What is your definition of success here today in this meetup as an Agile practitioner? Achievement? Doing what you're passionate about, your purpose. Oh, I love that one. What does success look like today for you in this meetup? Knowledge to help others, doing what you love, oh, connecting people, systems, and things. That's a good one too. Feel free to keep on chatting those definitions of success.
But knowing that I have done something to serve someone else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why we're here. We serve other people. We help to change them. We help them grow. As you're typing, as you're thinking, another show of hands or put it in chat. How many of you were thinking about work when you were thinking about success? Thinking about your job? Yeah. Thinking about work. Okay. Here is Ronnie Ware. She is a former palliative care provider, and that is someone who cares for people with long-term or terminal illnesses. Ronnie wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. When people are dying, here's what they say. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I had let myself be happier. As much as I know we're here for Scrum professionals, we're here for work, we're here for our jobs, it's important for us to talk about this because we are all more than just our jobs. We're all more than just Scrum professionals. Our jobs are not our success. When we tie our self-worth just to our jobs, it's a term called career enmeshment, and it just means that there's a lack of boundaries that make it hard to develop our own personal identities outside of work. A study by the Psychiatric Center Yellow Brick showed that 70% of millennial respondents define their identity through work. And what I found really scary is we do not always realize it's happening. For example, picture yourself and the way that you introduce yourself to most people. I would say, hey, I'm Season, I work as an Agile coach. That's just rolls off the tongue. It's totally natural. It's my go-to introduction. But I need to remind myself that I am more than just an Agile coach. I could say, I'm Seasoned and I somehow have managed to keep a plant alive for 16 years. I could say I design t-shirts based on my favorite video game and my shop just had its 1-year anniversary. I could say, hey, I know how to drive stick shift. I founded the a cappella group at Amazon. I got a high score on Theater of Magic Pinball at Shorty's Bar in downtown Seattle. These are certainly not life-changing, profound examples by any means, but they are still part of me. They are still successes. And not a single one was about work. I have another exercise coming up. Again, you can use chat. You can unmute and do this verbally. Here is your assignment. I want you to introduce yourself, but I want you to share a success along with your introduction, and your success cannot be something that you have done at work. So typing in chat or unmuting, introduce yourself share a success, and it cannot be something from work. Chris won a chopstick contest. I will have to get that story. Oh, Andy, congrats. You just started a podcast. That's awesome. Na's running a marathon. I salute you. I would die after about a mile. Other successes anyone want to share? Oh, and thank you for the link, Andy. We will check that out. Wow. Oren runs a Discord channel of 1,400 PMs. That is a lot. Oh, Rob has raised some awesome kids. Yeah, keep these going. Who you are, your success, not about work. Chris and I talked about this before. Here's the funny thing. When you get in touch with the fact that you are more than just work, what happens is you actually get better at your job. You show up more effectively at work. When work starts to feel like it's everything, remember this. There is more to life than work. I've been talking at you for a while. I told you I am a big fan of breaks. There is a term called psychological detachment from work. It is coined by psychologist Dr. Sabine Sonnentag, and that just means mentally disengaging from the task at hand. Those who practice it show fewer symptoms of psychological strain. But here is the thing about taking breaks and how you choose to do it. There is a study in the Journal of Behavioral Addictions that shows that people who choose to get on their phone for taking a break actually have higher mental costs associated with being on your phone. So what this just means is remember to take breaks, even if they are small ones. My break time tends to be 45 to 50 minutes. That's when I feel myself getting a little bit restless. I will build a break into the classes I'm teaching, the meetings I'm facilitating. If I'm working on my own, I will stop and take a break and get up. I will pet a cat. I will stretch. I will move in some way on my break. And there's a really cool book called The Joy of Movement, where Dr. Kelly McGonigal studies what happens when you move. And it's not just as even spinning in your chair. I wouldn't do that too much. That may actually not work in your favor if you're spinning too much. But even that movement, Chris, it's more than just a mere endorphin rush. It can influence so many other brain chemicals that help you alleviate worry and bond with others, that can protect you from anxiety and depression and loneliness. So we are going to move. We are going to take a very, very quick break. And this is something where even if you're stuck at your desk, you're in an office, there are other people, you can do these movements and nobody is going to give you a second look. It's totally fine. I do them when I'm in an office too. Here's what I like to do. I like to start by just nodding my head, yes and no. And again, I invite you to do this with me if you would like. It's a little bit of yes and a little bit no. I like to shrug my shoulders up to my ears. Oh, I have a lot of tension there. And then just kind of let them drop a couple of times. So all the way up to ears. And then let them drop. I'll do a few rolls forward. Listen to all the crunching. Do a couple rolls backwards. A little bit of crunching. Times I will take my head to the side for a little bit of a neck stretch. Other side. And then I do have a lot of fun times with my wrists. I'm a gamer, I'm a typer. I'll kind of just roll them out a couple of times, one way and then the other. And that's it. That's all you need. And again, you can do this in an office, just at your desk, anytime you are feeling stuck, moving in whatever way. That is a form of self-care. And speaking of self-care, oh, I got so excited I pulled out my earbuds. Self-care, something that we talked about in the breakout rooms before this started. I want to know from you, again, you can unmute, put it in chat. When you hear the words self-care, what do you think about? Self-care. Healthy habits, that's a good one. Me time, going for a walk, work-life balance, me time, taking care of self-meditation. Yeah, that's a good one, Oren. I can give you the official definition from the National Institute of Mental Health. Self-care is taking the time to do the things that help you live well and improve both your physical and mental health. Basically, self-care is how we end that stress cycle, that response with the lion. When the lion goes away and the stress is still there, learning self-care gives us that signal that it's time to stop the stress response and return things back to normal. Self-care, it's not just a one-time thing. It's not just slapping on a face mask and being like, self-care, I'm done for the rest of my life. I wish it were that easy. It takes practice every single day. It's hard. And I was thinking about self-care in our roles and what does that look like? What are we challenged by? Again, this is one I'm going to introduce to you a couple of topics. I think we will have time to only cover one. So you want to pick your favorite. We'll do a poll in a second. One thing is to identify ways to recharge without feeling guilty about it, caring for yourself without feeling bad. That's one thing that we could talk about. Another one is self-care for introverts and extroverts. Depending on where you are in this spectrum, self-care actually looks a little bit different for each of us. And then there's also how important it is to find a community of care, people who can help you put on your own oxygen mask first. So Chris, if you would be so kind to put up a poll, same thing, vote for your favorite topic, the one that you definitely want us to cover, because we will have time to cover one of these. So we are, the bar is going quickly, but it looks like recharging without guilt is slightly ahead. So if you want it to be something else, go ahead and get your vote in. Okay, now it's tied with community of care. Okay, and it looks like everyone has answered and we have a tie. Uh-oh. Let's see. Chris, I'm gonna throw it over to you. Do you want to hear about recharging without guilt? Or do you want to hear about how important it is to find a community of care?
I'm going to go with community of care.
Ooh, excellent choice. I guess that's the perk of leading the meetup is you get to do the tiebreaker. Perfect. This is a great topic because when we are the coaches who are helping other people, who do we reach out to for our help? When I was researching this topic, I learned about John Cassiopeia. He wanted to be a lawyer originally, but instead he became a loneliness scientist. Very cool. Did not know that was a thing. What happened was he experienced a near fatal car crash when he was younger. And when he was recovering from the car crash, he realized that there were two things that were really important to him. Those things were love and they were social connections. And that car crash made him just abandon his plans to study law, and instead he decided to apply mathematics to the psychology of loneliness. He founded the field of social neuroscience, and he did 40 years of research into loneliness. Here are some things that grabbed my attention about loneliness. One thing I thought was cool, the region of the brain that actually experiences loneliness is the same region of the brain that is responsible for processing physical pain. Studies have shown that if we experience loneliness over a long period of time, it can actually make us less able to judge the intent of others and to value other people's opinions. It makes us less able to let go of setbacks. And this was the one that shocked me. Loneliness can actually go into your immune system and alter your DNA transcription. Wow. It is so powerful, loneliness, that in Japan and England, they have appointed people as ministers of loneliness, and it is their job to find ways to reduce loneliness in those countries. Because reducing loneliness has been shown to make you healthier. People who have social connections have been shown to be able to slow physical and mental decline. They've been shown to live longer lives. They have lower levels of anxiety and depression. It's been shown that they have greater self-esteem and empathy for others. Loneliness is kind of like hunger. When we get hungry, we eat. When we feel lonely, that is our cue to have connection. What connection actually does is produce oxytocin in the brain, and oxytocin helps you feel calm. Oxytocin helps you actually form further social connections. Those connections produce more oxytocin. You just get this rush of awesomeness, this avalanche from meeting more and more people and feeling better and better. Thank you, oxytocin. And if you think about it this way, in meeting people and getting that oxytocin and feeling awesome, meeting other people and connecting socially with others is actually a form of self-care and caring for ourselves. We can think of our social connections as a sort of mental health care team. And I'm going to share with you my care team. We've got two parts to it. These are the professionals. And who's on the slide? I was going to say it's actually changed over the years, but if you've seen this talk before, it's changed even over a couple of months. I am working with different therapists. I am working with coaches. My doctor is on there. She helps me find medications and adjust them to what is working for me. All of these people and medication, I consider these the professionals. They are part of my paid care team. Now, these people do not get paid to put up with me. This slide hasn't really changed too much over the years. They have my family on here. They have my friends, my coworkers, Chris and Betty are on there. My boyfriend is here. My cats are part of my care team. In fact, I have one sleeping on my desk right now. This part of my care team, they are there for me. I consider even this meetup and everyone here, you are part of my care team too. You provide me support when I need it, and this care team provides me support even when I think I don't need it or I don't want it. Having a care team really is magical and a form of self-care. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about who is on your care team. And while you're going through kind of that mental list, I want you to actually pick out one person on your care team. And I want you to identify how and when you are going to reach out to that person on your care team, even if it is a small gesture. If you're comfortable sharing in chat, please feel free. Pick one member of your care team and how and when you are going to reach out to them. Like I said, I've got a cat on my desk right now. His name is Vegeta. I'm reaching out and I am petting him. That is how I am reaching out to my care team right now. My boyfriend's on a trip to Las Vegas. So as soon as this talk is over, I'm just going to send him a little text to check in and see how things are going. I'm seeing sending a hug via text right now. Oh, that's awesome. If anyone else wants to share who you are reaching out to, when and in what way, that is your assignment. Reach out to someone on your care team. It could be a virtual hug, a text, a thinking of you. This era of social media, go like one of their pictures on Instagram or Threads. Participate in Threads, that's a thing. How and when, even if you don't want to share, identify how you are going to reach out to a member of your care team and make a commitment to do so. In this field, it is so easy to feel like you are alone. We come in sometimes as consultants, outside consultants. I've been the only Scrum Master in an entire company, or maybe it's just a small organization of Scrum Masters, or maybe you're a change agent, fighting the system and wanting to make change. You really can feel so alone, or maybe you're working remotely. Whatever it is, remember your care team. That commitment that you made to reach out to one of them, honor that commitment. Get your oxytocin and keep going. It is now time to put your tray tables up and return your seats to an upright position. Man, our roles are hard. The world is hard right now. People are hard. Let's acknowledge that. Self-care is hard too. There's really nothing out there for us that is easy, it's great that we love our jobs, right? Here's what I want you to take away from our time together. I want you to think about when you're being faced with the turbulence of imposter syndrome, or you've got someone who's saying, oh, Scrum Master, Agile Coach, what do you really do? Can you provide me some metrics to justify your success and your worth? When that happens, and it is a win because it will happen, not an if, remember your care team. Remember your friends, your family, remember the people in this meetup, remember who is there for you and who is on your side, whether it's human, a cat. We're here for you. We're lucky to have one of the most supportive professional communities out there. When you're out there in the field, as you're working with your teams, just remember, most of all, please put on your own oxygen mask first. And thank you. We've rendered Chris speechless.
It works better when I'm not on mute. Oh my goodness. Wow. Season. Amazing, amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, I think what I'd love to do at this point, if with Season's consent, is open it up for questions, comments, thoughts, that sort of thing. So Also, as always, if you want to network with folks, you are always encouraged, share your LinkedIn link in the chat to build your professional network with the other folks here. But yeah, if you've got thoughts, comments, questions, raise your hand either virtually or, on your camera, and let's open it up for that. And I have one for Season. So Season, you, with great transparency and vulnerability, shared, a bunch of things about yourself, including that you're an introvert. And I'm guessing that leading a session like this might be one of those things that takes energy. What sort of self-care do you have in store?
Yes, I'm terrified before I give any kind of talk or teach a class. Just, yeah, it's that fun mix of anxiety or introversion. It gets a little bit easier, but I've never been fully confident or comfortable coming into any of these. So I do want to share that if you're ever nervous before anything, totally normal. Something really interesting that I uncovered when I was researching introversion and extroversion, there is some new research that actually shows that it's less about the way you are around people and energy, and it's more how you react to stimulation. So extroverts are always looking to be energized and stimulated and be in those environments, whereas introverts are looking for kind of a less stimulation, or we can be around stimulation, but it will kind of drain us faster. So yep, it does take a little bit out of me. So things that I like to do before these talks, I do try to kind of have a cat handy, and actually right now I have two of them. I don't know if you, there's one on my lap
We can see
and
them both.
then one on the desk. So having them there to kind of just distract me, provide some kind of calming down. I even will play with something kind of with my hands to get that nervousness and that energy and that stimulation out. What else? I practice a lot before classes and before talking. And then afterwards, I always have some kind of treat to reward myself. I'm trying to not displace the cat on my lap right now. I have something to look forward to anytime I do a talk or a class, whether it's a candy bar or a nice meal or a video game. So specifically for these, that is what self-care looks like to me. I do a lot of prep work.
No,
Great
that's
question.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Other folks, thoughts, comments, questions?
Season, how have you dealt with self-care in environments, or specifically work environments that aren't in tune to that?
That's a really good question. I have worked in some environments. So I mentioned at Atlassian, that was, I found they were publishing blogs on mental health. As I said, the founder talks openly about impostor syndrome. People were talking about their diagnoses with bipolar disorder, experiencing loss, like so open about mental health. I'm very lucky to have worked in some environments that were like that. And then some that were the complete opposite. And I have to really lean on having that solid outside of work healthy experience to kind of balance out that unhealthy experience. Like, don't get me wrong, there has been crying in various office bathrooms or my own bathroom, like curled up on the floor, like not so good. And maybe that's a form of self-care too, kind of letting that out. But as I mentioned, I work with therapists, doctors, and coaches, and I have kind of a healthcare team to really get me healthy outside of work. I do rely on my kind of outside work care team of my family, my boyfriend, and having things to really look forward to, like knowing, maybe I'm not so happy in this particular work environment, but I'm doing it so I can spend the weekend at Disneyland, like really just treating myself and taking care of that and being in tune with, is this just the dregs of a job and the conflicts of working as a scrum master, or is this truly something that is hurting me? And if it is, then I get out.
Mhm.
That's a great question, Penny.
Good, good. Yeah, that's a good response.
Yeah.
I see
And
Naz.
Naz-
Yep.
Hey, thanks. I got a couple actually, but the first one is, how would we do this thing? How can I, if I do this activity exercise with the team, like how can we do it with the team? Like if the team is like there is a case of work-life balance. So just like I started a new client, and then I'm hearing like people are struggling with the work-life balance, and they are calling it out even in the meeting. So how can I repurpose this to have that conversation within the team? That was my first question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I find that retrospectives, when I'm talking with the team kind of about, how are you doing? How is work-life balance? How are things for you personally? It's not something that I would ever try to do right off of the bat with a new team. But I will build a connection with the team members. I will have regular one-on-ones with anyone on the team that I'm working with. And I'll try to just ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you better than you were before? Are things worse than they were before? Like, I really just like to dive in and make deep connections on an individual level with team members that I'm working with. And then over time, once we have that connection and people are starting to feel safe, I may open up my retrospectives a little bit, maybe starting with a new team with the, okay, what's going well, what could be better, and then starting to get into that, like, how are you feeling? If you could change your work-life balance, what would it look like? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like this company is valuing mental health? So it's likely that you may already be doing retrospectives with your team. Once you've kind of gotten to know them and they're comfortable with you and each other, I start to just slip in a little bit more of like the feeling and mental health stuff. Good question. Are there any other ones?
I mean, I had another one, but I don't know if we have the time for that.
Yeah, go for it.
This one actually is slightly deeper level. So this is around self-care.
Mhm.
What if you lose that support system, what you are just referring to as a self-care?
Mhm.
So how can you rebuild that system? So I'm talking about my personal experience. I lost someone, and my sister, and then she was my go-to person, right?
Mhm.
So now, once I lost her, when I'm trying to cope up with the stress, I do not have a go-to person. She was always there for me.
Yeah.
So how you build that self-care, like who you want, like how you actually overcome and look at creating a new system for yourself. That
Mhm.
is just curious.
Yeah, that's hard, and I'm sorry to hear about your sister. There's no one that will be able to replace people that we've lost. So I would say, I mean, the first thing, which I'm sure you know, is we can't replace people like that. And what I found, because yeah, I've been in situations where I felt my support system crumbling too. And I felt like I didn't have anyone around, or I moved away across the country from my family. It's been hard. And in those times, I found that what helped is making sure that I am strong and taking care of me first. Again, therapy is, I can't recommend it enough. Therapy, exercise, eating healthy, all of those things that they tell you to do, it works. It works in strengthening kind of who you are and becoming your own support system. First of all, like being strong, putting on your own oxygen mask, taking care of yourself, just making sure that you're reinforcing that. And then it does kind of feel like everything's fallen to the ground. You're starting over, you're rebuilding. I just got curious about who I was and things that I loved to do, and trying to find ways that I could share that with other people. So for example, when I moved across the country, I loved singing. So I joined a choir and I met people that way. And then we started to go out to dinner sometimes. Or I joined, a book club, and I found some community there where, sure, on the surface, we're talking about books, but I know that everyone there is seeking that connection, and people there are feeling as lonely as I do. I find ways to meet people in a way that introduces me to them through a common interest. Because again, as I said, I'm an introvert, so I don't just like go out and make friends on the street. I need kind of a reason to. So even in a group like this, if there's someone that you're interested in talking to, just say, hey, let's hop on a Zoom call and let's not talk about work. And I know if someone said that to me, I'd be like, great, if I have to say agile one more time today, I'm gonna lose it. Like, you do have to put yourself out there a little bit and just focus on yourself and who you are, and then go out and find people and reach out to them. And it can be awkward, but just know that everybody else is seeking connection just as much as you are. Any other questions? And I do see going back to talking to people kind of about how they're feeling. Blob Tree is a good resource for that. You can do the Never Have I Ever game with your teams.
Yay. Well, one more time, I would like to thank Season for sharing all of this with us. Oh my goodness, Season, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all of you for coming out and hanging out with us. Our upcoming events, dropping them into the chat just about every Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. I host my open office hours, and quite a number of you are regulars, so y'all know that. If you haven't come and hung out with us at office hours, come hang out. It's a great way to get insight, gain knowledge, earn some SEUs, PDUs, whatever kind of EUs you need. And it's a really great community. So great group of people to get insight from, to learn from, and to get support from. Next month, our evening program is going to feature, who is that person? Oh, me. So I'm going to be doing a workshop about coaching with questions. And so we're going to look at a whole bunch of different kinds of questions. And I'm going to provide you with a library of 100 questions that you can use as a coach. And we're going to get to see how they work, see what they're good for, when you would use them, all of that. And it's going to be very much a hands-on practicum kind of thing. So if you want to build your coaching skills, and in particular, improve the way you use questions, come hang out with us next month, first Thursday evening of the month. Thank you all for coming. Have a fabulous evening. I'm going to stop the recording now. Here it comes. Wait.